Hey guys, it's Young Actu, the political kid. I finally got the time to go ahead and start this channel up. It's a lot of editing, a lot of work, a lot of research. I'm really trying to come up with good content for you guys, so that's kind of why it took so long to get started. I know we've been talking about it for a little bit, but it's finally here, and I wanted to start this channel to really talk to the people in the community about young people in the community specifically about just political issues going on right now that I don't think enough people are paying attention to and really looking into. And I just wanted to shed some light on a few of those topics and discuss my take on those topics and really talk to my community and get more young people informed, because I think a lot of people right now are misinformed with whatever the mainstream media is spitting out to them, and reading headlines just doesn't really cut it. So just going forward, I wanted to get deeper into those issues, talk a lot more about them, a little bit more extensively. So yeah, that's really why I started this. So first things first, let's go into our first topic, which is going to be on why it is important to vote. So I think most Americans agree that voting is an extremely important responsibility of any American, right? The more people that vote, the more people that are represented in government. But that's not been happening. The U.S. is 26 out of 32 of the most developed countries in voter turnout rates. This last election, where we had 138.7 million people vote, the most out of any election that we've ever held in the US, only 60% of eligible voters were actually voting. Um, 55% among the voting age. So there's a big difference between people that are eligible to vote and people that are of voting age. Anyone over 18 is allowed to vote. But that doesn't mean that they went and got themselves registered and put themselves in a position to go and utilize that right? People that are of the voting eligibility have gone out and gotten registered, but chose not to partake in the election, right? So 60% of people voted that were eligible. 55.7% among people that are actually allowed to vote. That is a terrible number. I mean, uh, Ireland, Slovakia, Germany, all of those countries have way higher rates than America when it comes to voter turnout, even though America was one of the first nations to actually have truly free elections. Now, that is extremely discouraging, extremely problematic. There are only three ways that this country could be run. One is through extreme participation of the public, right? When a large amount of the public is going out there and voting, they're holding the government accountable, and people are actually being represented. That's one way to run this democracy. Two is through special interest groups, lobbyists, organizations, unions, things of that nature, where they are donating money to campaigns, or they're not supposed to be, but talking with campaigns, having their thoughts heard more than regular everyday people who aren't in those organizations or unions, and that's where the power is going. Third is elitists, where people like Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, the 1% have hold of the people in government. Now, for the past, let's say, 10, 20 years, we've had a big mix of special interest groups running government and elitists running government. And a lot of people are talking about taking money out of politics, and that's how we're going to solve the problem and doing all that. And to a certain extent, I kind of support that, but it really falls back on us. We're not going out there and voting. We're not going out there and making sure that we're represented and that we're holding Congress accountable when they're turning more to special interest groups and money from elitists than worrying about their constituents and actual problems in their communities, right? And that's on us for not going out there and having our voices heard. Because when our voices aren't heard, it means that we're not holding the government accountable, and special interest groups and elitists have free reign to take over the government, which is what's been happening recently, which is why Donald Trump even won the election in 2016, and it dates back before that. The BGov barometer reports that 90% of House members and 91% of senators who sought re-election in 2012 were successful. Why? Simply because they had their names out there more. They had more money for advertising. They had the backing. Most of the times, they have the backing of their party already with them, and more people know about them simply because they already have the position. And that's just running rampant. People aren't being informed about their actual policies and their ideologies, but rather just how popular they are, or if they're already in office or not. And that's a big problem here. People aren't learning, people aren't informed about what's going on in government. So, how do we fix that? So whenever we think about fixing or solving anything, I think it's always important to go back and look at the roots. And that always seems to come back to education, especially here. Why is it that students only learn essential things like economics or government in their senior years of high school, right before they're about to go out into the world? They should be learning about things going on around them the minute that they begin high school, learning how to form their own independent opinions and empowering them to make informed decisions. There should be a government and politics class starting from freshman year. Okay, and a lot of people are going to come out against me and be like, hey, young Acty, these are really controversial topics. A lot of times we can't even have civil discussions about them as an adult. So why would we put that back into kids and create more divide among younger generations? And honestly, that is a bunch of bull hockey. So, what I'm advocating for is just for a basic foundation of knowledge. Uh, just learning about the different ideologies that exist right now, and what they want and how they want to move their agenda is extremely important, and something that's not being taught right now. People don't know the difference between conservatives and libertarians, and people don't know the difference between liberals and progressives. And that's a really big part of making informed decisions when it comes to voting, is knowing what you are and the people that will move that agenda. Um, and also, when we're talking about what we're learning in history and when it comes to things in those regards, a lot of stuff is stuff we're learning from 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and we're not learning about things that have recently happened, things in modern history that have occurred, that have had a big impact in the way things are running right now. Uh, what about learning about the war in Afghanistan that we're in right now, that we've been in for 17 years, and no one knows why it started? How about learning why the market crashed in 2008, uh, and just learning more about that and the position that that put us in, which set up the way that the economy works right now today. So, just learning about those little things in history, events that are more modern, and learning about current events too, things that are going on right now, um, is extremely important, and something that isn't happening in today's schools. I'm not saying that we should completely eliminate learning about history and Black history and learning about all that stuff, because it's really good stuff, and it's part of the thing I'm going to talk about next when it comes to voting. But people aren't learning about modern history and current events, and that's really leaving people out of being informed. Now, there's a lot of things that we can discuss when it comes to the education system and how terrible that is right now. Like, people don't know how to research. Researching is a big thing that should be being pushed in every school. People don't know how to budget. That should be a class that's opened up, but those are other things, different topics. So I also feel like part of it falls back on the people. And I'm going to take a moment to talk specifically to people in the black and female community. So leading up to the election in 2016, we had the most racially and ethnically diverse eligible voting population ever. However, blacks only made up 11.9% of the vote, down from 12.9% in 2012. Uh, Keep in mind that blacks only make up 14% of the population. Now, that's extremely discouraging considering every single black person should be voting. Every single black person. There have been people that have died for you to earn the right to have a voice in this government. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, right? People that have given their lives, sometimes literally, in order to give you this right to vote. So no matter who you're voting for, I know a lot of people are like, oh well, in 2016 there were two terrible candidates, and I didn't want to vote for either of them. And while I agree that they were two terrible candidates, there is always, when it comes to government, a lesser of two evils. Always. And it's about learning the good and the bad sides of both candidates in order to really learn who is the lesser of those two evils. And that was really the problem in 2016. People weren't willing to put in the grind to learn about their candidates and really make a decision on who would be best for the country. And although it can be difficult at times, it is something that we should do each and every single time at every single level, local, state, and national elections. All of those elections, there should be 14% of the vote should be black, right? 14% of the vote should be black because every single black person should be going out there and going and putting their voices out there and making sure that they're heard. A problem for the black community, we have to take more power in this voting situation. What black people aren't realizing is this is probably going to be 2020. This is probably going to be the last election that we are such a power play when it comes to politicians trying to get votes. Black African American birthing rates have stagnated, right? We're not multiplying at the rate that others are, and immigrants, Hispanics, have been taking over as a bigger part. Are taking over as the majority of the minority, right? So we need to be going out there and utilizing the power that we have, presenting politicians with an agenda of things that are going to benefit us in the black community, and saying, listen, you need to adhere to these things, and then we'll vote for you. If not, then we're not going to vote for you. And that's what we need to be presenting to people on both sides of the debate, and really stressing our power in this situation. Because without us, the candidate is going to lose. It doesn't matter who it is. The black vote is important. It is a big part of the vote, and they need us. So we need to utilize that. And females too. Females most recently earned their suffrage in 1920 when Tennessee became the last state needed to ratify the 19th Amendment. So it's important that females as well are proactive in getting to the voting booth. Although the actual voters increased in white women from 65.6 to 66.8%, shocker, it decreased tremendously in females of color, from 70.7% to 64.1%. It should be a habit for your kids to, come election day, get up early out of bed, and go to the voting booth with you and wait in line with you while you are going to go vote, so that it's a habit that is ingrained in them when they're young, so it's not a hassle to go out there and go vote when that time comes. It's a habit. So there are things that we could do as a culture to put more pressure on voting. Essentially, it's about motivating people, right? People aren't motivated to know what's going on around them. They're busy trying to pay bills, worry about their kids, or how they're going to pay for groceries. In our case, worrying about how to get into college and how we're going to pay for that. We need to, as a society, put more pressure on people to vote. And that's on everyone, including people that are already out there voting. You should be talking to your friends about who they're voting for, having meaningful conversations, even with the people that you don't agree with. It's hard at first, but if you refuse to even have a conversation with people you don't agree with and actually listen and try to understand their viewpoints, then how are we as a society supposed to move forward and create policies that help all of us? There is common ground here, right? And people are so polarized and so taking to their sides that they're not willing to look for the common ground. There are things that both sides agree on, little steps that we could take in government to help make this world a better place. If we stop for 1 second and listen. And that's on both sides. Just listen to the things that the other side is bringing, and not just shutting it out completely. So go out there, pressure people to vote, have those difficult conversations because they are important, and they are, and your vote is important. You individually, you, this one person looking at this video right now, your vote is so important. And we need your help to make this country a better place. So for the next years after this 2020 election, no matter who wins, whether it's Donald Trump or whoever wins the primaries, I don't want to hear anything from the people who didn't go and vote. If you didn't go and vote, you have no right to complain after the 2020 election, because when you had a chance to put your voice out there and say something about the things that are bothering you, you stayed quiet. And that's on you. So that's really all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for just viewing this whole thing. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. Let me know what other topics I could be discussing. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. Be honest. Tell me things I could do to help make it better, because I really want to do well on this channel and bring some good content to the community. So thank you guys for viewing, and I'll see you guys next time.